All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started just for sake of time. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, everyone. Tonight, it's all about financial finesse. So my name is Dao Duong, and I'm the program lead for professional and community education here at the Tourette Association of America. I'm also joined by my colleague over here, Alexandra Walsh, TAA Programs Manager, who will be helping out in the Q&A and in the chat tonight. So tonight's event is being provided as part of the Tourette Health and Education Program in partnership with the CDC. The views expressed by speakers and moderators tonight do not necessarily reflect the official policies of the Department of Health and Human Services, nor does the mention of trade names, commercial practices, or products or organizations imply endorsement by the U.S. government. So tonight, we are going to hear from two financial experts from the TS community, actually, about basic budgeting, delve into some money habits and money attitudes that inform how we spend, and then learn about resources and professionals that can help navigate your financial journey and needs. So at the end of this event, we will also present a quick QR code for a brief survey to tell us what you thought about tonight's programming. So if you love these two and want to bring them back, let us know in that survey. We really would appreciate you filling it out. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speakers for tonight. So first up, we have Kate Millets. Kate Millets has been a member of the Tourette Education Advisory Board since 2019. As an adult with Tourette and the mother of two Tourette Youth Ambassadors, Kate is an active part of our community. She regularly supports families and schools with education and presentations surrounding Tourette and other associated neurodevelopmental disorders. Kate has had her AFC designation since 2009 and recently completed her Certified Diversity Professional designation in order to provide evidence of her commitment to diversity, inclusion, equity, and accessibility and belonging, especially regarding for people who are neurodiverse. We also have Jacqueline Keeley with us tonight, also a member of the Tourette community. She began professionally coaching folks in personal finance in 2018 and started her own business specifically suited for artists and freelancers in 2020. However, she has been really passionate about budgeting and annoying her friends about it since 2014. Her goal is to free artists of the shame and guilt they have surrounding money, and her professional background and certification in financial literacy, combined with over a decade of living the dream as an actress in New York City, allows her to achieve this goal with artists every day. She offers coaching in group settings as well as one-on-one, and prides herself in helping artists transform from being financially illiterate, scared, and ashamed to knowledgeable, free, and confident. Awesome. So welcome to Jacqueline and Kate tonight. A few ground rules before we get started, okay? So members in the audience, please remember to put your questions into that Q&A box so Alexandra can go ahead and organize those for us later tonight. And if you have any reactions, emojis, anything other comments that you'd like to make, go ahead and put that into the chat. We'd love to see it. And, just as kind of a basic ground rule, we expect everyone here tonight to be present, engaged, and respectful to one another. So take space, but also make space. All right, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with a quick Zoom poll to get you all excited about tonight's content. I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll really quickly here, just so we capture who's here with us tonight and how we can best support you. So go ahead and take a few moments there. I'm going to read off some of these questions. Alexandra, can you confirm that you can see the poll up?
Yes, can.
Thank you. So the first question, what do you identify as? Are you here as a family member, a curious community member, a provider, an educator? Let us know. Question number 2, I currently feel blank about my ability to effectively manage my finances. So how do you feel? Are you very effective at it? Effective, unsure, non-effective? If other, please specify in the chat. And then number 3 here, which one of these resources would you like to hear more about tonight? So we'll talk about a lot of resources. Oh yeah, the results are coming in. So I'll show them in 1 second. Budgeting resources, money habits and attitudes. If applicable, do you feel that if and any comorbidities affect your ability to maintain a personal budget? Let us know in the poll. Okay. Give a couple more seconds for that. Got 4 out of 4. I think we're waiting on one more here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now, and maybe let's see if I can share the results with you all here. Can you all see this? Thumbs up if you can. Great. So, who do we have with us tonight? Individuals with TS and family members and caregivers. So, that's the majority of our audience today, Kate and Jacqueline. And then scrolling down to question two, how do you feel about your ability to manage your finances? Okay, cool. I see about half saying they're unsure. Great, we can work with that. A quarter is saying they feel very effective. That's awesome. And then a quarter saying maybe not so effective, but that's okay. That's why we're all here. Question three, which of these would you like to hear more about? So a lot of requests for budgeting resources, money habits and attitudes education, and yes, let's hear more about professionals, right, and the finance field. For question four here, if applicable, do you feel that any of the comorbidities affect your ability to maintain a personal budget? Half have said no, actually. So that's great. But, there's always room for improvement, right? So I think we can also talk about that as well, right? Was that helpful to you both, Kate and Jacqueline? A bit of kind of a pulse on who we have here tonight?
Yes,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing that poll and go ahead and start launching into our first question of the night for our panelists. Let me go ahead and make sure I pull my notes up here. All right, so this is the first question for you both. So why don't we actually just start off with your roles? You have different roles that you play in the finance world. I think it would be really helpful for our audience members today to learn more about that. Maybe we can talk about even like the verification process, right, for a financial professional and things that folks can discuss with different types of professionals as well. So we can go through kind of all of those together, but I'll go ahead and let either of you start.
Yeah, so I'm an accredited financial counselor, and an accredited financial counselor is someone who has gone through a certification process. So I had to pass an exam. I had to have experience hours, and I have to make sure that my certification remains in good standing. So I have to complete continuing education credits every year or every 2 years. I have to turn in 30 continuing education units saying that I am staying up to date and I follow ethics and sign my oh, I'm not going to say sign my life away, but adhere to the code of ethics and the standards of practice of the Association for Financial Counseling and Planning Education. And this designation, you may have also heard of the Certified Financial Planning designation. If you think about a whole spectrum, the AFC and the CFP are just two on there, but they tend to work very collaboratively together. Accredited financial counselors help people. Well, we specialize in helping people create and maintain strong financial foundations so that they can then get into a position where if they want to go and start investing and growing wealth and looking towards some of those wealth management things, that they're ready to move off into that world with a certified financial planner. If you are working with an accredited financial counselor, you can go to afcpe.org, and under certification, you can verify the credentials of an accredited financial counselor. And the certification team at AFCPE does do an audit I think it's every 2 years, to make sure that nobody is using the marks inappropriately. But always, always, always doesn't matter. Always verify the marks and the good standing status of your financial professional to protect yourself. Jacqueline.
So I am a financial coach, and financial coaches are not accredited in the same way that Kate's kind of just been describing. There's a little bit more of a free for all with calling yourself a coach. So you do want to be careful when you are choosing to work with a financial coach, because like Kate said, she had to do all this work and go through all these like hoops and hurdles to be able to write AFC next to her name. Whereas a financial coach can be like, I'm a financial coach, pay me. While I am a financial coach, and I'm a very good one, there can also be people out there who maybe aren't quite so good. So you do need to do, I'd say, a little more vetting of people who are not as accredited. My accreditation is a certified financial education instructor. This is through the National Financial Educators Council. So I went ahead and I got that because I wanted to have some kind of accreditation. But I came from doing this from doing it at a company where they trained me there. I'd say some of the benefits, at least what I view of a financial coach as opposed to maybe a CFP or an AFC or people within that spectrum, is that for, and I'm sort of speaking with a broad brush, so I'm not talking about everybody, but I'd say most of those people, that is probably their life's work. That's been what they do, that's what they focus on, that's what they study. And the reason I do what I do and what I feel like a lot of financial coaches do is that we already have our group of people that we identify with. For me, it's artists as an actor. And so I'm able to bring good financial literacy and background and also an understanding of where all these people are coming from. And I feel like that can sometimes be, if you're looking for that sort of thing, that's very useful. If you're not, if you're just like, I just want a financial education and I want it to be accredited, then that's a great place to go. Find a CFP, AFC, and you know that's what they're gonna be. So it's a little bit, little A, little B.
I think, Jacqueline, to your point, and I think you raised a really excellent point. When you are looking to work with a financial professional, you want somebody who's going to meet you where you are, who understands who you are, your background, your culture, your experiences. And so, whether you're working with a financial coach or an accredited financial counselor, Jacqueline and I are not here to duke it out and fight. Okay, we have a lot in common. Some of our approaches might be different, but you know what? She's absolutely right. This is literally my life's work. I've been in this field for about 25 years. I don't specialize in artists. I don't even specialize in working with the neurodiverse. I do some high level training, and I do have an ability to do that. But mine's more about anybody who has a question about money. I'm going to find out more about them, and then I'm going to focus on the numbers. Whereas Jacqueline can bring a lot more of that lived experience in a profession in the artistry world, plus the financial work that she knows how to do, and pair them. So when you're looking, find somebody who you can trust, who has put in the work, who you can verify is not just blowing smoke up your skirt, and is going to help align what's going on with your goals and your values, to help move you forward.
That's great. No, thank you so much for outlining those just the nuances in those roles, right, Kate? And you mentioned like having those lived experiences, and at the end of the day, you're supporting others, right? And meeting where they're at. So that's really cool. So thanks so much for sharing that tidbit with us. And then we will be sending out a resource after this webinar that can detail some of those maybe professions, maybe help you understand about what some of those nuances are and things that maybe you can ask. So keep an eye out for that to follow up after the event. So I'm going to go ahead and move into budgeting, a big one here. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with Jacqueline. So where does someone start? What do you do? Budgeting, I
Oh
have
my
no
God.
idea. Pretend I have no idea.
I mean,
What do we do?
budgeting is one of my favorite things in the whole world. Big nerd right here. Um, the thing to remember about budgeting, if you're starting brand new, is that it doesn't have to be complicated and it doesn't have to be hard. You don't need to have a program. You don't need to have the perfect software. Stop Googling the perfect software. Stop doing that. You don't need the perfect app. Pick whatever app you've already come across, or sit like literally the notes on your phone or a piece of paper and a pen, and you want to just start by literally writing down money that comes in and money that goes out. I also like to say, don't worry about specifics. It does not matter if you spent $3.47 on the coffee. Just write $4. Move on. Like, you have too much important stuff in your life to be worrying about change, literal change. So, if you're brand new to it, I always recommend starting as simply as possible. And then we can get into all the other ways I love to budget, but that's my advice for right off the top.
Just to build from what Jacqueline said, and I love the way that you simple, because if it's not simple, are we going to do it? Wait, you can't start with calculus. And by the way, personal finance is all about addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. If you have a four-function calculator, you too can be successful. Okay. People would come into my class when I was teaching as a professor, and they'd be like, Dr. M, I can't do math. Honey, I use a four function calculator for everything that I do. And if I don't have the four function calculator, I don't do it because I don't do math in my head. Are you kidding? That's just
There's a
embarrassing,
reason
right?
there's a reason I use Google Sheets to do the budget and not
Ex-
my own brain.
for starting, I agree with simple. The question that often comes to me is, yeah, but how do I start? How do I even know? And there are things that we definitively know, or I hope so: car payment, car insurance, rent. But oftentimes when students and people are coming to me and saying, okay, Kate, what do I do? How do I figure out what I spend on groceries every month or how much I spend dining out? There's two key ways. One I really, really like, and one is really, really effective, but a major pain in the butt. So I'm going to start with the really, really effective, but a major pain in the butt. And that is looking back at 3 months worth of bank statements, categorizing everything. And if your head is exploding, hang in here with me, categorizing everything and then taking an average. If that's the best way for you to do it, then what I really do recommend is getting a financial professional on board with you. Financial professionals like Jacqueline and me, we are a fee only, which means you pay us for our time and our expertise. We're not selling you anything. You're paying for our brains. You're paying for our ability to connect with you. And sometimes going through those bank statements becomes very overwhelming. And I'm not going to just do it for you. Jacqueline's not just going to do it for you, but you do a piece, we do a piece, we do stuff together. Um, it is more brain intensive, but it will give you a much firmer look immediately on what's coming up. The other thing that I tend to recommend that is more fun is be aware of what you have coming in and how much you have left. Take care of those needs. Absolutely. Don't be going and spending all the fun money yet. Track your spending. Create a spending journal, whether that's the notes app on your phone or it's your Kindle Scribe or it's a notebook. Write down what you spend and when you spend it every single day, and add with it how you're feeling when you spend it. For example, I was not planning on stopping at Little Caesars on the way home from my daughter's appointment today. But then I got started thinking about garlic butter and I couldn't stop. But I was also feeling stressed. I was feeling tired. I was feeling overwhelmed. What do I do to cope with my emotions? Feed my face, y'all. Feed my face. So I know that if um, I can't predict when I'm going to be stressed, right? But I know that I always want to keep an extra $20 somewhere, that if I don't have a quick, good answer that is carb filled at home for me, then I'm probably going to stop somewhere. Do I want that to break up my budget? No. So if I keep $20 and I commit to this is only for those stress filled emergencies, and once it's gone, that helps me. But I learned that by tracking my expenses with those emotions to figure out where my triggers were. And stress happens to be one of my triggers, and that's typically food. Other people go out and buy a boat, buy a car when they're stressed out. Please be very careful with large purchases. But even the small things can break the budget. So depending on how tight things are, I really do like the spending journal. It doesn't give you an immediate answer, but in doing it, you'll start to see patterns, I think. And working with a financial professional like Jacqueline or me, that's someone else that can help see those patterns, even when sometimes we can't.
And do we have time for me to add another
Yeah,
thing?
go ahead. Mhm.
So just something like, as I mentioned, I specialize with artists and freelancers. And so one of the big questions with budgeting that comes up with folks like that is the variable income. So, you Google how to budget and it says, take your income and subtract your expenses. And already we can't do that. So when I'm doing that, like I have my own sheet that I make for my clients, but I won't talk about that right now. ADHD, let's go. So one of the resources that we'll look at today is a budgeting template. I like when the budgeting templates have a place for you to put in your income that is changing all the time, and you can compare it to the expenses as you go. So having that ability to, as you go, track like, okay, I've made 500, this is how much I've spent this month so far, and then also working out what your fixed expenses are and doing that one time. People tend to like do that 1,000 times every time they restart budgeting. But for the most part, your fixed expenses, your rent, like Kate said, car payment, these things. Oh, hey, budget, are, like we know what they're going to be for the most part. Yes, your Con Ed or your utilities might be a little different, but you can probably say it'll be no more than $75 or whatever. So if you do that one time, then all you have to do is track the other money, what I'll call variable expenses. So for my freelancers or my variable income people, if you know that your fixed expenses are $2,500 a month, you need at least that before you can even begin to think about groceries, going out, buying things. And even just that base knowledge can bring you a little bit of like freedom, a little bit of a breath when you're like, okay, I know that much. But just looking briefly at this template, which will be sent to everybody as a resource to use. This is an example where I put in some numbers, but you can see you're going to fill in white cells, and they have a place where you can put in your projected amount of income in a month, and then in each week what your actual income is. And then the spreadsheet does everything for you to compare what you said you'd make versus what you made. And then you go through same thing with your expenses, and it will give you the answers as you go along for how you're doing. This is usually easier, this kind of sheet where there's lots of different sources of income available, like job 1, job 2, job 3, business, dog walking, like whatever it is you're doing, to be able to fill that in, rather than some spreadsheets are really made for people with like one line of income. So just keep an eye out when you're picking a budget to make sure it matches the way your life is.
Oh, that's super helpful. And thanks for going through that template, Jacqueline. I think that's really helpful to also send out to our attendees as well. So what I'm hearing, the common themes here is like keeping it simple, keeping track of its spending journal, starting off, like you said, the inputs and outputs, right? And really making that kind of, and using the information to bring to a financial professional if needed to help with that support. So that sounds great. No, that's wonderful. So I'm going to go ahead and if there aren't any other um, questions in the Q&A or chat, Alex, in regards to this specific budget template, we'll get to it later during the session. I want to go ahead and move on to talk about money habits and attitudes. So this should be really interesting. So Kate, I'm going to go ahead and start off with you. Can you provide us with a high level overview of money habits and money attitudes? And then for those in the audience, go ahead and put into the chat, what attitude towards money do you want to have? So, what's your desired state of attitude towards money? Go ahead and share that into the chat. We'd love to see it. So, I'm going to go ahead and let Kate start off with this question.
So we all have habits. We all have things that we know that we do that are sometimes really, really great, sometimes less than optimal. I have a habit of picking up a candy bar almost every time I go to the grocery store. So that's a $1.50. Used to be 50 cents. Now it's a $1.50 or $2. It's really ridiculous. So I'm trying to really break that habit. But we all have the things that we know we tend to do regarding money. So our money habits. And we have attitudes about the way that we spend money, whether we are focused on saving, or we are focused on being carefree, or we want to be spontaneous. When we take the carefree attitude, or the really strict attitude about how money is going to go, or anything in between. This ties into this really great resource that if you fill out the survey at the end of tonight's presentation, you're going to be entered to win the online version of Money Habitudes. And this is one of my favorite tools as a financial professional, because Money Habitudes helps us identify, number one, it's a game. So it's a great way just to kind of start the conversation and wonder, how do these statements describe me? And it gets us a way to start a conversation either with ourselves or our partners or our parents or a sibling or a financial professional, to say, hey, this is what I'm really happy about what I'm doing. This is where I really want some help. We can. I'm an oversaver. Um, I I don't like to have fun. I would much rather sock it all away and save it for a rainy day. When the rainy day comes, I never want to spend it then. My husband, on the other hand, he wants a plan so that he knows the future's taken care of. But sometimes he'll wake up on a Saturday morning and he'll be like, hey, let's go up to, and he wants to drive 4 hours and go shopping. And no, you can't do that to me. And so conflict can happen in relationships regarding money, but it's less about the conflict at this point for this presentation and more about, number one, playing a fun game just to kind of get a feel for where you're at. And number two, knowing that there's a resource that can help you identify advantages to the habits and the attitudes that you have right now, and challenges that you may have by overusing a particular habit or attitude. And I know that I'm not a lot of fun. And once I did money habitudes for the first time back in 2014, I've been using this as a tool for 10 years now. It was a wake up call for Slade, my husband, and me. And I'm like, and he's like, that kind of tells us something, doesn't it? I'm like, oh yeah. And it's funny. I was laid off at the end of January, still have not been able to secure employment. And I'm getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And everybody else in the family is like, well, do we really have to change? Yeah. Yeah, we really do. Now, have I made us crunch down and squeeze those pennies so hard they need to cry? Not yet, but I really, really want to. I'm fighting some of that instinct because I know that I overuse it. And is the point to be miserable? No. Is the point to focus on YOLO? You only live once? Also, no. We need to find a good balance of how do we have fun and live for the now, and also how do we save for what's coming or save in case of an emergency. And money habitudes is just a really neat way to do that. And when we can recognize our habits and our attitudes about money, positive or negative, that can help us define how to move forward or redefine what we want to do differently.
Uh, and I'll just add that one of the main things the company I worked for and that I also focus on is the idea that we can leave guilt and shame outside, because that's a big thing people feel when they come in, whether it's like literally on the entire spectrum, people who save, people who don't, like everyone feels this sort of feeling. Um, and by working through it, whether on your own or with someone else, you will feel better, because if you're a person who over saves, I was also a person like, I can't spend because I had a fear, the scarcity of like, I'm not going to have enough. So I can't go to a movie. And budgeting allowed me to go, I have budgeted $20 to go to the movies. I will not be homeless if I go to the movies. So budgeting can help with that. And then on the other side, if you're like, well, I have no problem spending, that's the issue. Is that by budgeting, you actually get to see what your values are, like what Kate talked about earlier about going through your previous expenses. Even if you're not writing them down, it's a great way to go through and go, okay, I spent $200 at this restaurant. Don't go, I'm awful, I should have never done that. The question is, I spent 200. How do I feel? Am I happy that I did that? Did I have fun? Was it worth it? Yes. Then let me make sure I'm putting more money here. No? Where would I have rather spent it? And then you're like, either way, you're making a better life for yourself by examining your feelings, your habits, and your attitudes.
No, that's great. Anything else to add to that, Kate?
I think you nailed it, Jacqueline. I think that I think the shame and the guilt, there's too much financial shame. Just there's just too much of it, and I want you to live your best financial reality. Don't compare yourself to me. Don't compare yourself to Jacqueline. Don't compare yourself to your neighbor or the guy down the street. We spend too much time keeping up with the Joneses. Poor Jones family. What did they ever do? But what am I doing that I want to do for me, for my family? What are my goals? What are my values? And if we align there, it doesn't mean you have to talk about money with everybody in your family. If it's none of their business, it's none of their business. But know your values, know your goals, and align your spending plan or your budget with those things. And hopefully that will move you on to a sense of feeling of peace and decreasing that shame and guilt that's regarding money.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to, again, encourage the audience members to put into the chat again, like, what attitudes do you want to have about money and spending? We'd love to hear from you. So go ahead and put it in the chat if you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next set of questions. And this is just more about like resources for you both. I know you've shared a few already, and we will be sending out some more. But any other good resources that come to mind to help with someone to support their financial literacy, right? We got some questions about kind of being maximizing the potential, right, with financial literacy. So what are some of those resources that maybe we can share off the top of our head, and then we'll gather those and send those out too after?
If you're looking for a resource to teach a child about personal finance and increasing what we call financial socialization or the ability to talk about money, SammyRabbit.com. Sam Rennick is the author, and it's a book. It's a story that talks about savings. It's age appropriate for, I think it's kindergarten through second grade, and it's a great fun story to engage children of just, I mean, really, I was going to say even all ages. I mean, it'll go all the way through elementary school, but it's really K through two. But just to start that conversation, um, money habitudes. But I'm also a big fan. Please, 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 don't just believe everything that you see. If someone is using shame to motivate, walk away. If someone is using shame to motivate, walk away. But NerdWallet is a great resource. I am blanking some blogs right now, but I know nerdwallet.com, investopedia.com. Those are really good content and fact-based. I mean, Investopedia will give you definitions if you want it. NerdWallet's a place that I go to and I refer clients to sometimes just to get some additional information. And I'm blanking some of the other ones. Jacqueline, what jumps to your mind?
Honestly, I was gonna say NerdWallet. I think that's like the landing page for plain language. They know exactly their audience is like people who are like, what is 401k? Enter. And they give you the answer. Of course, they have sponsorships and ads and things, but they also tend to very clearly notate this is a sponsor's link. If you click here, so you'll know, like, it's not NerdWallet saying Wells Fargo is the best. It's Wells Fargo paying to be linked on their page. But their information, very good. And I just absolutely want to back up Kate with like, if you're reading something and it starts to make you feel bad, find a new resource. There's just there's not enough time. And also if you're feeling that shame, you're only going to be able to sustain any change in behavior for like 6 months before you crash and burn. So agreed.
Things I think, and Jacqueline and I did not discuss this, so Jacqueline, correct me if I'm wrong. We're going to go ahead and we're going to go way out on a limb here. But oftentimes I will have clients, and I mean, we're talking over the past 25 years, where debt is this big, ugly, nasty. What if I have student loans? What if I have credit card debt? What if I have a car loan? Here's the thing. I have my PhD in personal financial planning. I have a car loan. I literally just got my credit card paid off after 4 months. Okay, so um, and I have student loans. Oh boy, do I have student loans. Let me tell you what. I have a mortgage. This idea behind good debt and bad debt is dangerous. I want you to be aware when you put something on a credit card. How long is it going to take me to pay it off? If I'm only paying the minimum payment, what does that mean? Well, that means that I'm paying more than the sticker price for it. Sometimes shit happens. Sometimes you have to carry a balance because the plans that we laid out just didn't work the way that we thought they were going to. Income came in less, or there was an emergency, and the money that we were going to put towards paying that bill off had to go to a child's medication, had to go to a car repair, or oh my gosh, when it rains, it pours. So the tire went bad. My husband kissed a curb with a little bit more emphasis than I wanted him to. Turns out because of the all-wheel drive or the front wheel, I think it's all-wheel drive, I couldn't replace just one tire. I had to replace all four. So instead of a $300 or $400 bill, I had to pay $1,600 when I was thinking, oh, one tire, exactly, Jacqueline, exactly. So
This is why I
sometimes
take the train.
we have money. What's that?
So this is why I take the train. Absolutely not.
Sometimes we have money set aside to pay this thing off, and then, oh my gosh, life happens. I don't want you to pay any more for the sticker for what it costs than you absolutely have to. But don't let somebody make you feel bad about carrying a balance because you simply can't afford to do anything else. There are resources to help you navigate that. Jacqueline, and other people in her realm, people like me and in my realm, that's what we do is we help people navigate that. And I occasionally carry a balance on my credit card. I have a car loan. I have student loans that I tell you what, if I don't get a job, they're going to be with me until I, okay? It's okay to have life happen.
Yeah.
No, I
I
don't want you
mean,
going out and putting $25,000 on your credit card because you just want to go shopping. Let's think about what that means. It'd be fun, but let's think about what that means and what that's going to cost over the long term. But I'm also not going to shame you if you do it. I want to talk about the behaviors and the choices and the emotions and the stressors behind it, so that we make sure that you're making this as a conscious decision. But it's your money. So if you feel good about it, let's just make sure that the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and your income is more than your expenses. That's all I ask.
in terms of budgeting resources, I'll call out. So we've talked about keeping things simple. Now, if you don't want to keep things simple, if you're like, "Hello, there's the pool of budgeting. I want to dive in. I want to be a budgeting person." Yay. There are two that I would really recommend diving into. One is my favorite, my lifetime partner, You Need a Budget. That is the name of the program. You Need a Budget, affectionately called YNAB, YNAB. I have been coaching. The reason I'm into budgeting is because I found YNAB in 2013 and learned how to budget through that because it was the only thing that made sense with my strange income. So I've been coaching people on how to use that for a very long time. Um, but it is way more than I could talk about right now. But it's amazing. And, if you have questions, let me know. But definitely look up youneedabudget.com. It's based on zero-based budgeting, but I won't get into that. And then there's also something called Tiller, and the website is tillerhq.com. It is much more tracking spending than it is budgeting. Budgeting is an active thing you do. Tracking spending can be active, but it's reactive because you're tracking what happened versus budgeting for what you want to do. There's nothing wrong with it. It is, in fact, how some people prefer to live. I do both because I'm crazy. And so Tiller is really great. It brings in your transactions just like YNAB, and it puts them into Google Sheet. And there's a huge community that has made every template you can think of, every way you want to see your money. If you decide to try Tiller, there's a 30-day free trial, and they have specifically a template called the monthly budget calendar. And I think that is the most useful for people who are new to Tiller. So before you go download 30 templates, which of course I did, start with the monthly budget calendar, and try that out. I think those are two just very, very good, very useful, very worth the money budgeting resources.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know we shared quite a few, so I'm trying to make sure Alexandra and I we gather those for our audience members later. And I just had one more quick question, I think, because we are, presenting this information for our TS community members. Like, if you were to put yourself and, again, just kind of what is the general advice for someone in our neurodiverse community? Like, what advice would you give them when they are starting out on their financial journey and getting that support that they need, knowing that, for example, right? Oh, I have a co-occurring condition, for example, right? I have OCD, maybe I have ADHD. Like, what is that advice that you would give to someone starting out to better make them feel empowered, right? To look up and make themselves confident with financial literacy, whatever that may be. So I just want to hear from both of you because I think that's really unique intersectionality lens that we're looking at here, right? Is that, this is all great information. Now, how do we make it apply for the neurodiverse community? So, any thoughts on that?
You want to
Yeah,
start, Jacqueline? You want me to?
I do. I'm so
Go for
excited.
it. Go for it.
Um, as a person with basically all the comorbidities, um, it you really have to give yourself permission to not be like everybody else, permission for the advice on the internet to not work for you, for the friend who goes, oh, just do this when you want to spend money, for that to not be your thing, and just own that, like, that don't work for me, sorry. Something like really big, the when you feel, I know someone asked a question, like a pre-submitted question about like stress spending.
Mm-hmm.
um and I know sometimes I just get a spending bug, and I'm like, must go buy something, must go. And when these sorts of things come up, if you try to just go, no, I don't, like, I shouldn't do it, probably ain't gonna work with our fun brains. So coming up with things that work for you, like, to scratch the itch of putting things in a cart online but not buying. I went to like a discount makeup place and got, when I wanted to spend, I was like, $1.50 eyeshadow and $1 lipstick. And like, are these trash? Yeah, probably. But I didn't go spend $200 at Sephora. Um, but just allowing yourself to be like, what works for me is sitting down to budget, and then getting up to go on a jog, and then coming back and budgeting some more, and then taking a shower, and then coming back and redoing the entire budget, and not feeling, oh, I should be better, but rather just like, that's how I do it. And then finally, if you have, I don't know if it's related to any of my comorbidities, but I feel just a deep sense of control from budgeting over my life. And every time I sit there and move the numbers around, my brain just goes like, ah, thank God, something's under control. That could be you. You don't know yet. Try it out.
That's great, Jacqueline. Kate, would you like to
I
add to that?
don't have all the diagnoses because I, for some reason, cannot pass the ADHD exam, so to speak. Which, if you've met me, if you spent more than 5 minutes just talking to me, you're like, "Girl, I can diagnose you," but unfortunately, an MD hasn't yet. That said, when I work, I've got a colleague by the name of Christine Hargrove who's just got her PhD in financial therapy and marriage and family therapy. And she and I do a lot of coaching of financial professionals regarding working with neurodiverse people. And one of the things that we have taught professionals to do is start with the positive. And that's what we want you to do also, is write down your strengths. Before you start anything with money, write down your strengths. What do you do well? It doesn't necessarily have to do with money, but if it does, that's great. Do well. Remember that, number one, it's only money. Yeah, we have to use it. We have to keep a roof over our head, food on the table, utilities paid, all that stuff. But what do you do well? And then what do you want to do better? Find a potential area of growth. Not, I do this really bad, but I want to be better at. It is absolutely about framing things. Also, know knowing your triggers. If for me, if I want to focus on something, I need to turn on Spotify, I need to turn on my music list, and I need to have that running so that the back part of my brain stays busy while the focus part stays on what I'm doing. Is it easier for you to learn by reading something, by looking at a chart, um, by did I say listening? I'm sorry, I'm losing my mind. Listening to something. There are a number of different ways that you can work with someone, professional or even just a buddy, to bounce things off of if you're an auditory listener or an auditory learner. I'm a verbal processor. If I'm working out something, it doesn't matter whether it is something having to do with money, which is my jam, or it has something to do with the family, or it has something to do with anything. If I can verbally process it, it's going to make sense. You could spend 3 hours working it out on paper, and if I can verbally vomit on somebody, that's a terrible way to say it, but that's basically what I do. I get all the words out, and all of a sudden the things start to click into place. So maybe you're not a pen and pencil budgeter to start. Maybe you are using the voice to text app on your phone, or you are using voice to text on your computer, rent $1,200 a month, whatever it is, so that you can make those connections. Our brains fire a little differently than someone who's neurotypical, right? So let's encourage our brains to work to the best of their ability. And if we're verbal processors, let's do it. One of the other things, what was the other? We Jacqueline and I want to encourage you to ask questions. We want to encourage you to remember that you are intelligent. If money is new to you, or if you struggle with money, that is okay. You don't have to do it alone. You absolutely can reach out to a financial professional to ask for help, to talk to somebody. And I want you to think about, what do you want to get out of your money, and focus on the solution. There's this solution focused behavioral therapy, or solution focused financial therapy. But sometimes if we begin with the end in mind, well, sometimes if we begin with the end in mind, we get overwhelmed very, very quickly. I'm not going to tell you to set a savings goal of $25,000 right now. That's just, unless you've got a lot more money than I do. I mean, but break that down into chunks. And I'm going to start a lot smaller, and I'm going to be specific, but I want you to think about, if you begin with the end in mind, what's the big, 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 big goal? And then let's scale that back, and let's talk about what is really realistic right now, and how can I take baby steps towards getting there. Our brains often will stay more engaged because look at what I did, and I can check it off. And then that will also remind us when we reach a hiccup, maybe next month or 6 months from now, oh yeah, but look at what I just did. I can get back on that horse. So thinking about, as we go forward, you are intelligent. You can make progress, and it doesn't have to be by yourself. Maybe some of the best money you can spend is engaging with a financial professional. If it's not, that's okay too. But if you need a resource, number one, yes, there are people like me and Jacqueline, but there are also lots of places where you can get financial help at no cost. There are nonprofits in your area, people that are trained like Jacqueline, people that are trained like me. Lots of options for you to reach out and ask for help, and then get yourself to a position where, if you want to move on and work with somebody who you pay, that you can do that. So have faith in yourself. And when something doesn't work, that doesn't mean try it again. Move on to the next thing. Don't beat a dead horse.
No,
And
that's great. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
just to add on to talking about getting help, um, definitely some things to consider. Like, I know sometimes I've seen online people talk about it, the ADHD tax of like, I spend money on the meals that get sent to my home already prepared because I ain't chopping those vegetables. They will go bad. So I might as well spend a little bit more. So those sorts of things, being like, if you don't have the funds, like Kate said, there are nonprofits, there are places that will help for free. There are people like myself who work on sliding scales based on your income. And also like working with friends. I know, like, I have a friend, like, if she asked me to do something for her, that is not a problem. Will I do the same thing for myself? No, absolutely not. I will not get to it. My brain is not excited by the idea of doing it for myself, but it's very excited by the idea of doing it for her. So like maybe teaming up with friends, something like that. But also keeping in mind that like there are folks who, what I do for them is I categorize all their stuff in YNAB so that all they have to do is see how much money is left. And to them, that's worth it because then they stay within their budget spending rather than not having it. So like Kate said, it might be worth something to get a bookkeeper from a tax consultant, from a CPA or something. So just keeping in mind that like if you can't do it all on your own because your brain just refuses, it's okay. You can just be like, okay, well, I need to find $50 a month for a bookkeeper. And that's it. Okay, great, moving on. Like, just allow yourself to have help.
No, I love that. I think that's the beauty in recognizing when it's okay to ask for help, right? because again, you're smart enough, self-aware enough to know that. And I think that's a great advice. So thank you so much for that. That was a really awesome set of roundtable questions we just had there. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to our live Q&A portion. I know there's about like 10 minutes left, but I just wanted to make sure we give the audience a chance to ask any questions. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Alexandra to maybe read off some of these. But just looking at some of these questions, they may be a little bit out of scope for this conversation, but we can see what we can do. Okay, so Alex, I'm going to go ahead and let you um, go with that. And then what we can do too in the meantime, we're going to put up a QR code for the survey that Kate mentioned earlier. So we really would appreciate you filling that out. Those that fill it out and complete, and provide their contact information will be entered into the raffle to get one of those free codes for the Money Habitudes online assessment. So we really want to give those away because I think it's really helpful tool to get you started and learning more about your habits and attitudes. So please fill out that survey. So Alex, can you quickly bring up the QR code and share screen that for the audience members here? Yeah, thank you.
As we're waiting for that to come up, I can see a couple of the questions that came in. Is it okay if I just go ahead and start with that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Rima asks about a tax ID to claim the donations when filing income tax. And I'm not wholly sure what you're talking about, but I can tell you this. If you have made a donation to a 503c3, 503, 501c3, 501, thank you, Jacqueline, C3 organization, at the end of every year, they will send you a statement. If you qualify to itemize your taxes, your standard deduction or your deductions, that is when you will claim the donations. If you do not qualify to itemize and you take the standard deduction instead, then you'll get the forms in the mail, but there's nothing that you can do with it because the system defaults you to whatever's most financially advantageous to you. That's general information. I do want to refer you to a qualified tax preparer that may or may not be a certified public accountant, but I would reach out to a VITA tax center in your area or someone who is a CPA to at least figure out who the best person is to ask that question and to find out how much it's going to cost to get more detailed information.
Just a small note, if you're a member of Actors Equity, we have our own VITA tax thing. So go to actorsequity.org.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. There's an anonymous attendee that says, hey, how do I be more like Mr. Krabs, Scrooge McDuck, and be stingy with my money and less like a shopaholic? And number one, fill out that QR code. Let's talk money habitudes first. Reading through some of those challenges and advantages, I think can be helpful. But what I want to know, and I want you to reflect on, and if you guys have any questions, you'll have, I believe Dow and Alexandra are going to give you our email addresses. You're welcome to email me or Jacqueline with any questions. What do you want to accomplish? Start with one thing. If you are a shopaholic, what is one thing that you want to do differently this next month? Okay, maybe you buy 3 pairs of shoes a month. Maybe let's talk about scaling that back. Or maybe you're like me and you find out that in the last 2 months you've eaten out 4 times a week. Well, I needed to have a real Mealits. We're not going to do that anymore. So I said, no, we're not going to eat out for an entire week, but I'm going to give myself permission to eat out twice that following week because I know I'm going to spend it, but let's see if I can get through a week. I think it's really about making one small change and then building on that next small change. I'm not going to tell you to give up your coffee habit. I'm not going to nickel and dime you to death and make you miserable. That's just ridiculous. But starting small and doing one thing at a time and then seeing how successful you are can and will build you into the next thing. But I think that's also one of the things looking at the end is, what do you want to accomplish by doing this? You want more money in your savings account? Maybe it's less about focusing on the shopaholicism and more about focusing on how you are spending money on yourself by putting it into a savings account or spending money on yourself by putting it into a retirement account. So there's a lot of framing that we can do. I do not want you to shame yourself I want you to talk to somebody. I want you to think about what that end goal is so that you can move forward in a healthy way. Jacqueline?
Yeah, something that I'll say as a financial coach, I think I spend more time on than potentially on the other side of things is really sitting down. It's almost like financial therapy, but I'm not a financial therapist and I stay in my lane. But my first question for those sorts of shopaholic type spending is, well, let's talk about why you're spending. Because it's not because you want three pairs of shoes. It's not. It's because you're feeling something else and you want to get rid of that feeling or you're responding to that feeling, and that's what you do. And so I spend a lot of time with people discussing, like, why are you doing this? If you're doing it on your own, a good thing I stole from Marie Kondo is to answer the question why like 5 times. So it's like, why did I buy shoes? Because I like shoes. Why? Because they make me feel good. Why? Because, and then you, by the end, you're like, because I miss my dog. Like, okay, how do I address that I'm missing my dog in a way that actually addresses the issue? On a very practical side of things, big piece of advice if you're a stress spender or you go out there to spend money, go to stores with good return policies. Don't take the tag off. Take it back next week. Don't, oh, if you overspend on food, you can't return it. But if you overspend on an outfit at Bloomingdale's, you can return it. And that's what I do.
Yes. And if you're not someone for leftovers like I'm not, be careful when you go and spend money on food. What is that going to look like? Know your strengths and your weaknesses. And I don't like weaknesses, but I mean sometimes we have to say it, my weakness is if I bring home food, I ain't eating it. Somebody else is eating those leftovers. And so I try really hard to not do that. I only purchase what I'm going to eat. Groceries is a little bit different, but how many times have I let that salad go to waste? Let's just not even talk about that. Let's talk about these questions and answers. Um, Green light card, if that is the same card that I'm thinking of from prior work, it's a prepaid debit card. There's a time and a place for prepaid debit cards. I think the big thing to recognize with all prepaid cards is what fee does it cost to keep your money on there? Check your balance, load money, or take money off. Make sure you understand the costs of doing so. I have done work with many, many people for whom I get a fair amount of pushback because I will agree that the banking system is not for everybody. It's often difficult for people to understand that, but it's not. So if you're using a prepaid card, just understand the costs that are associated with it and find a way to save so that it's not just a transaction account. What can you do to find a savings vehicle? Jacqueline, do you have anything on that?
The question is, what can you do to find a savings vehicle?
No, just the green light card, or if you don't have
Oh,
a bank account with a savings
I'm
and a
not very
checking,
familiar
creating
with.
that savings habit.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, cash envelopes, the envelope system. Bam. Google the
Yes.
envelope system. We don't have time right now to tell you about it, but you quite literally put cash in envelopes for groceries, eating out, da da da, savings, and then please spend some money on like a fireproof safe.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Good point. Okay.
There's a question in here. Can Medicare and Medicaid cover for invasive and non-invasive treatment for Tourette syndrome if I don't have the money? Is there a grant, scholarship, or financial assistance option? And that is not something that I am qualified or knowledgeable enough to answer, but I can tell you this. You can call Medicaid. You can call Medicare. There's somebody there who can help answer that question. If you are looking for local resources to help with treatment, I strongly encourage you to reach out to your state support group or chapter of the Tourette Association and find out what resources they're familiar with, because state by state, they're going to know a whole lot more, or they're going to have connections that will help you navigate where to go and how to find those funds.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Kate. Thank you so much for that.
Yes.
And thank you to everyone for submitting those questions and being here with us tonight. I think I learned a lot more than I expected. So that is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So super, super grateful for you both for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us today and supporting the TS community. And we really would appreciate you being back on potentially, right, for the next session or so. Well, maybe we can do a part two. Who knows? So let us know in the survey. So the QR code is up for you there. Take a quick 5 minutes to answer that, and we will be raffling off those Money Habitude codes. So we will go ahead and wrap up this webinar. We appreciate you so much, and please be on the lookout for a recording of the session as well as information and other resources mentioned here. And with that, I bid everyone a good evening and a good late
Thanks,
afternoon.
everyone.
Thanks so
Bye,
much.
guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.